I'm not gonna say that this is a bad thing, but all that is on my mind right now is the 2026 draft lottery and the results that we had seen. With that said, though, there are numerous masters to serve on this YouTube channel, and one of the big ones happens to be the Montreal Canadiens fan faithful, because we have been making videos about the Habs and their playoff run. They start out their second round series versus Buffalo later today. So why not go out there and talk about some of the prevailing Montreal Canadiens conversations heading into this series? Wednesday, May 6th. Of course, we're going to be here with a post-game video dissecting what happened in game number 1. But with that said, let's dive into some of these preliminary Canadiens conversations, starting out with the big man himself. All this talk about first overall picks, well, guess what? We've got another one from a few years ago that had one of the funniest comments this playoff run so far in the media, speaking to Marc-Antoine Gaudin. Gaudin asked Slafkovsky in the scrum, "I know the fans were wondering, you had that fight early on in the series and that big hit, like literally with your head. How are things?" Slafkovsky replied, "Well, I think I'm good, you know. I can't really get any dumber anyway, so yeah, I'm fine." And then you can see in the video he says it, then he kind of laughs about it. He's looking pretty good about himself. It's like, yeah, I made a joke in English. That's pretty funny. This is a more stoic image of Juraj Slafkovsky, not gonna lie. But the fact that he does have a sense of humor about the fight and the big body check, obviously that's a good sign. We still want to see more out of Juraj Slafkovsky throughout the course of this run and inevitable series, but hey, getting the 3 goals to open up game number 1 obviously put him on a good starting path. It's just, the guy hasn't scored a point since. So, Juraj, if there's a time to show that you actually are doing all right and you can't get any dumber, maybe game 1 versus Buffalo is a good time to get that going. Now, speaking about that Buffalo segment, take a look at this. This was posted by Niagara Parks on Twitter tonight at 9:30 p.m., yesterday night, I should say. The Horseshoe Falls will be illuminated in red, white, and blue for the Canadiens, and the American Falls in blue and gold for the Buffalo Sabres as they head into the second round of the playoffs tomorrow. This is so cool. We know that teams and cities are usually working hand in hand to create an enjoyable fan experience, and sometimes you will see monuments in major cities have these colors of the sports teams that represent those towns. But Niagara Falls is kind of interesting because it's so big that there are literally 2 different parts of it that belong to different countries. So there you go. Blue, white, and red, Horseshoe Falls, and blue and gold, American Falls. Nice to see Niagara Parks getting involved in the action here. Speaking about the action, there were some other announcements that we saw with Canadiens players. This is what Kelly Hrudey went out there and said about Jakub Dobes and the way he's been developing as of late. Apparently, Jakub Dobes is working with Pete Fry, a goalie coach that works on the mind. They've got a great relationship, and Dobes relies heavily on Pete. I love this little description over here. I don't know too much about Pete Fry, the goalie coach, nor do I really care too much, honestly, about what Jakub Dobes is doing differently in his training and his off-ice preparation, but hearing that the guy that he's working with is specifically a mind, philosophical, mentality type of goalie coach, that's something that I think Jakub Dobes has needed for a while. As we had mentioned earlier on in the season, Jakub Dobes, when he lost that overtime game to the New Jersey Devils, which would have been his first loss of the season, we remember what happened after in the post-game interview. The guy was crying, he was tearing up, he was so sad that he lost a hockey game, and it was a rightful conversation to bring up, saying, hey, is this a guy that has the mental fortitude to be able to handle playing professional sports at the top level, especially after a few months removed of crying in the face of the media. So to see that Jakub Dobes is specifically working with a guy that works on the mindset, the mentality, just being able that you're in the right place within your own head before you place yourself within the net itself, that's a pretty good sign. And it's not the only good piece of news we have seen out of Montreal Canadiens players. Take a look at this. 2026 Calder Trophy finalists, as voted by the PHWA, include Ivan Demidov, Matthew Schaefer, and Beckett Seneca. That's right, my friends. Ivan Demidov has been nominated for the Calder Trophy. Now, if we're being honest, I don't think anybody thinks that he's going to win. I think common consensus says that Matthew Schaefer is going to be the victor of this 2026 Calder Trophy race. I will say, though, there are a number of people that have been speaking about that same Jakub Dobes and saying that he should have been included in the Calder finalist ballot. Beckett Seneca had a pretty good season. Matthew Schaefer is probably going to win the darn thing, and Ivan Demidov was one of the top point scorers as well. You can debate that Dobes maybe should have taken Demidov's spot. He played 40 games and had a .901 save percentage. That's pretty good. Is it worthy of winning the trophy? I'm not sure, but was it worthy of a nomination? I'd say that if Jakub Dobes got nominated, I don't think it would be too hot of a take to see him in the midst of this list over here. Even the folks on the Habs sub are saying, yeah, no chance that Demidov is going to win, but it's nice to be nominated. I wonder how many votes Jakub Dobes got as well. Not winning the Calder has zero impact on what Demidov will become. He did more than I expected, but there is no beating Matthew Schaefer this year. I think this comment also sums it up pretty nicely. Demidov would have needed to beat Schaefer by 15 to 20 points to win it over him. Same as Macklin probably needed last year to win over Hudson. All three finalists have crazy ceilings, though. Demidov could flirt with 75 points next year if he has good line mates. Now, speaking about the future, there are some other guys that have been mentioned in the awards conversation that we have to take a look at, like Bryce Pickford out of the Medicine Hat Tigers in the WHL, who was given the Bill Hunter Memorial Trophy for WHL Defenseman of the Year. This is a pretty good trophy for a guy that's in the Montreal Canadiens system and that has been doing some pretty good work. This post on the Habs subreddit says that WHL MVP is next. I live in Medicine Hat and have had the pleasure of watching Bryce the last 2 years. Man, did you guys get a good one. Definition of a leader and a champion. Take good care of our boy. And from reading this, I think it's pretty apparent that Deece Analytics is not a Canadiens fan and is more so a Medicine Hat Tigers fan. If you take a look at what Bryce Pickford was able to do this season with the Tigers in the WHL, he finished off this season at 20 years old, 6'1", 185 right-handed defenseman at 83 points in 55 games. Was under a point per game in the playoffs as Medicine Hat got eliminated by Prince Albert, but hey, he was an absolute force in the regular season, captain of the team, and he had 45 goals. This is a defenseman. And he was still able to score that many. Just incredible numbers. I don't know how much this is going to translate to the National Hockey League, but it's better to see these numbers than not see these numbers. Am I right? And finally, we got to get into some bad news in this video before we finish things off. Speaking about Canadiens defenseman prospects, there was an update on David Reinbacher from earlier yesterday as well, speaking out about him not being on the bench in the second period. Possibly injured, hopefully precautionary. This was posted about and written about during the Laval Rockets game yesterday by Anthony Marcotte. Obviously, this is not ideal for Reinbacher and his overall development. I think it was posted somewhere else that the guy was only out for precautionary reasons, not necessarily because he's hurt. But we just got to get that out there. We're talking about young guys. We're talking about defensemen. Of course, we got to get the latest on David Reinbacher because there is something to talk about. With that said, though, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the Montreal Canadiens and some of these notes heading into round 2 against Buffalo? Thoughts on Slafkovsky? Thoughts on the Jakub Dobes update from Kelly Hrudey? Thoughts on Ivan Demidov being named to the Calder Memorial Trophy finalists ballot, and thoughts on Bryce Pickford winning WHL Defenseman of the Year. Let me know in the comments all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. Roll 99. Game 1 is later today. We'll make a video about that after the fact. And bye.